Welcome all to today's session. Hi, my name is Rob, and I'm a junior consultant at Turner and Townsend. And today we're joined by Simon and John from Agility Eco, who are going to run today's session. So this is a retrofit information support and expertise event, which is fully funded by the Department of Energy, Security and Net Zero, delivered by Turner and Townsend.
Thanks again, Rob, for the intro. Yeah, I guess we're delighted to be asked to deliver this. We have experience in delivering retrofit upgrades in partnership with local authorities, obviously particularly relevant to the Warm Homes local grant. I also realise I'm speaking to a lot of experts in the room. Many of you will have been very involved in delivery of HUG2, social housing decarbonisation fund projects as well, and are well progressed in planning for delivery of, so far as you can at the moment, Warm Homes local grant or social housing fund projects as well. So I'll just move to the agenda in terms of what we're looking to cover. So yeah, we'll do a little bit of background on who Agility are. A lot of you may not be familiar with what we do. We've got a little recap in terms of publicly available information on Warm Homes local grant, and then we're diving down into the key themes of procurement, managing multiple schemes, engaging residents, contract management essentials, approving delivery strategies, and then obviously sharing some contact details and a little bit about us. I'm Simon White, Operations Director at Agility. I lead the delivery of our large-scale projects as project managers and turnkey providers. I spent my career in energy efficiency and renewables, mainly in domestic grant funding at both energy suppliers, SMEs, and now Agility Eco. So Agility Eco being part of M Group, and everything that we do really is trying to combat fuel poverty and support a net zero future. So yeah, we've got a little bit around a rough descriptor of what we do, in that we do everything from retrofit services, energy saving advice, through to installation and aftercare. We've got a large team now that we've grown over a little while. That means we can offer these kind of services to our partners and clients, and we operate across Britain insofar as possible, supporting as many households as we can. So I'll we've included a little slide here in terms of the impact that we've had this is the period of April to March last year. We like to measure everything we do in terms of impact to support vulnerable households. So yeah, we've got some stats there. This impact has been achieved through our community schemes, retrofit advice and support that we offer, our projects that we deliver with local authorities through ECO, GBIS funding and other funding programs as well. Move on again. I guess most relevant here is probably just giving you guys a bit of a background of the work that we have done in Lab 3, HUG1 and HUG2. I guess we felt it was important to include this to just demonstrate that we have done some of this. I know there are very large schemes out there. Others will have done a lot more and have had equal or as much success. But we've been in it from the start. So prior to this, we were involved in delivery of LAD 1 and LAD 1 A, LAD 1B, and we've seen the scale of what we do increase over LAD 3. Obviously, HUG being an off-gas scheme, as a lot of you will know, has had its challenges, but I think we've been really proud of where we've got to in terms of working with supply chain, working with local authorities, and having the impact that we've been able to have under the scheme. So I think I just allow John to do a quick intro, and then probably move on to the next slide. Just with a bit of a reminder on the overview of the Warm Homes local grant scheme.
Simon. Yeah, hi, I'm the program manager at Agility Eco. So I oversee the delivery of our local authority funded schemes. I've been working at Agility for 2 years, but have been in the energy efficiency industry for at least 16. I was trying to add it up. I think it's at least 16, probably more than that, and delivered multiple schemes over that period. ECSERT, ECO, and obviously LAD and HUG lately. And yeah, currently overseeing the delivery of 4 HUG projects, which cover over 40 local authorities across England. So yeah, and Simon's just run through some of the stats there on where we are with delivery. So thanks, Simon. So just a very brief overview on local grant. I think some of you will have seen these slides before if you've attended some of these calls previously. But the plan is to upgrade 5 million homes, help towards the net zero target by 2050. And I guess some of the call outs on Warm Homes Local Grant, it's all fuel types, obviously. HUG was very much an off-gas scheme, which brought its challenges. So the hope is Warm Homes Local Grant will be less challenging, shall we say, because it's opening up the fuel types. A lot of the eligibility criteria is the same, EPCD or below, and looking at a range of measures from insulation, SLC pumps, PV, etc. And obviously we've got some cost caps slightly changed from HUG 2 and simplified. So we're looking at 15,000 for energy efficiency and 15,000 for clean heat. So yeah, looking like a positive scheme at the moment. On the next slide, we've just got a brief timeline of events. Obviously, I'm sure you'll all be aware of the key deadline was the expression of interest deadline at the 1st of December. We're all now waiting to hear what that funding award is, which will hopefully be announced early Feb, I think is what we're looking for. And then the timeline just details the next steps in the journey, the delivery assurance checks, the delivery period, the batch process, and when that can start. I guess the key call out here is the spending review was moved to June 25. And there is a concern of what impact that might have on potential funding going forward, or actually any announcement as to whether the scheme is going to be extended from maybe a 3-year to a 5-year. So definitely one to keep an eye on and see what is announced in that. So yeah, Simon.
So I think here we're just going to dive into some of the detail we've prepared on the key themes. So I guess what we've been asked to do here, and hopefully what we'll get across is just a few observations, I guess, on what we've learned from HUG 2 and its predecessors, and some suggestions really on things to consider moving forward and things to be aware of. So procurement, I guess we kind of come at this with our experience of both supporting local authorities to procure installers as a project manager, but also our own experiences of tendering as a provider of project management or turnkey provider solutions as well. So yeah, I think we'd kind of, when we'd been doing our lessons learned, things to consider, we had kind of engage potential suppliers early, probably engage your procurement team even earlier. We know that there can be resource constraints and priorities within organizations like this, and this isn't the run-of-your-mill type of procurement that a local authority might need to undertake. Test the market. There are a whole host of different actors and service offerings available in this space. You need to find something that fits with the knowledge and capacity that you have in terms of understanding what you need. Obviously that then helps inform your specification. So, if you review what all of the requirements are for successful delivery of a project like this, you need to be very clear on who's, what the roles and responsibilities are between internal, external, and the different providers that you might need to make your project team. Next on the list we have here is kind of give careful consideration to pricing templates. So, there is a world where pricing, and I guess here we're really thinking about both the risk-based approach that you might need to take in terms of admin and ancillary fees, as well as the commercial model that you might settle on for installation of retrofit measures as well. There is a balance needed, I think, between granularity and simplification, and I know it's something that John will touch on in terms of how it's important to engage with installers and supply chain as well. Seeking added value. So, this is a huge opportunity as a scheme to secure much more than just retrofit. It really helps to kind of drive real value in terms of, economic benefit, carbon, health and affordability benefits for a lot of your residents. I know there's an awful lot of work been done in this space to try and quantify that, and I know many of you will have detailed strategies on how you can both decarbonize and tackle fuel poverty within your areas. So I guess it's important that we look at both that in terms of procurement, but also the wider benefits and social value that increasingly can be unlocked through delivery of these kind of contracts. And then clearly ensuring compliance and value through procurement is got to be at the forefront of everyone's minds. I had a very, very quick next slide. Caveat this by saying we're not procurement professionals. We have people we can lean on within our business, but I think it's just a call out if you're not already aware that the Procurement Act changes do kick in 2025. So again, if you haven't done so already, do engage with your internal teams or external advisors or framework providers just to understand the impacts of that and how you're looking to procure for this scheme. So I think at that point, I'll hand over to yourself, John, here we are, just to talk a little bit about the lessons we learned dealing with installers and supply chain. So over to you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, obviously it's key to ensure you've got your supply chain in place early on. You don't want to start activity and then have to arrange your supply chain, and it can take longer than you might think to get the supply chain in place. There's lots of moving bits to consider there. So I guess what we've done is try to highlight the 4 key areas of recruitment, onboarding, supporting and managing, and then the considerations that you need to look at under each of those headings to ensure that you've got the right supply chain in partner. I won't read through all of the slides, but I guess on recruitment, you need to decide what your requirements are before you go out. You obviously need to be clear on what your process is and making sure that the offer is attractive. There's no point going out there with a complicated offering that the supply chain, aren't willing to work for. There's lots of funding opportunities out there. So you need to ensure that your offering is both attractive and simple for them. And obviously pricing will be a key part of that. The pricing needs to stack up. I appreciate there's considerations around the cost caps, etc., but also need to make sure the pricing works for the installer. The next key one is onboarding, just to make sure that the installer has the appropriate skills and accreditations, but also to ensure that they understand the process, and providing clear guidance at this stage and templates, etc., is really important. You don't want to get that halfway through the process and then people not be clear on what the next steps are, or realize that you've got missing evidence or data that you needed to capture as you go through the process. Once you've then onboarded, you then need to keep that continued support in place and making sure that you're supporting those installers so they can actually take on more work and can potentially grow as they work with you alongside you on the scheme. And one way to support them, payment terms can be quite key. Cash flow is key in funding schemes, and it can be challenging. So it's definitely something to consider to make sure that you're supporting those installers. So they want to keep working with you ultimately. Installers can be quite challenging to onboard, and it can be quite a long process. So it's really essential that once you've got them, that you keep hold of them and sort of work alongside them to make sure that the delivery is maximised. And the next stage is obviously managing them. There can be changes as you go through funding. There can be requirement changes that happen. So managing them through that process, ensuring you're supporting them, making sure that you're having regular meetings with them to track performance and identify any issues early, and also keep them updated on updates for the scheme. So if things change or requirements change as you go through, making sure that you're informing them at the appropriate time so that they can deliver what is required for a successful scheme. Whistle-stop tool supply chain is obviously key to the delivery of these schemes. So this is just some of the key areas we've highlighted. There are obviously many more that you need to consider. And I'll pass back to you, Simon, I think.
Thanks, John. And I think you're right. Supply chain is going to be key moving forward. We are expecting that the Warm Homes Local Grant Scheme represents a huge opportunity. Good suppliers and securing the supply chain and working well with them is going to be critical to successful delivery. So the next theme we were kind of asked to drill down into is managing multiple schemes. So I think what and this certainly hasn't been, this has been mixed, I would say, in areas of the country. So I think, yeah, I'd kind of talk through these here. I guess I'd say there are brilliant examples of collaboration at both the local and regional scale that mean that multiple schemes have been successfully deployed. But I guess it's been against the backdrop of the two main funding pots available for deep retrofit for vulnerable households have been Hug2 and Eco4, and these are only suitable for a very small proportion. So it does prove to be very tricky to match up consumer need and demand with this available support. So yeah, obviously the eligibility criteria have been restrictive from a Hug2 point of view, and I guess a customer looking for support, it's worth thinking the route for them. So they're often not looking to apply for Hug2, but they are looking for support to reduce their energy bills and decarbonize their home or other drivers indeed. So you will find that there's been an awful lot of inquiries to local authority schemes that currently there isn't the available support or eligibility for funding that is needed to support those households. So it can, as a result, be quite tricky to piece together a holistic service when there are big gaps in the funding availability at the moment. And this is an ever-changing landscape, right? So there's different application windows. You might have different referral organizations, energy advice activities whose availability and resources and performance does vary. And ultimately, grant funding can be there one minute, and you might have a shortfall the next month. It really can vary quite a lot. So there are in some areas hugely experienced energy advice providers who are doing a brilliant job of this, and hand-holding customers through the support and signposting them to all kinds of other holistic support. And some of that happens completely in isolation from local authority-led delivery of these kind of programs. So it's really important that we get those kind of organizations on board to try and complement what they do, and ultimately to try and support the consumers that they're identifying and managing to engage with, who can often be tricky to identify in the first instance. So navigating this whole landscape for consumers at the moment can be tricky. They can suffer from low levels of information, and ultimately that lack of engagement and potentially trust can lead to kind of confusion and frustration. And I guess the end result can be that we aren't maximizing the opportunity to support households that need the support. So how can we kind of learn the lessons of this? And the primary one is we're going to benefit from DESNZ's changes in the scheme design. So the far wider eligibility criteria of the Warm Homes Local Grant Scheme will be a huge benefit to the proportion of homes that can be supported. So it should provide a real base scheme for local authorities to be able to design around a central service of retrofit support within their areas. And we would very much recommend that you do consider this kind of whole ecosystem that you have within your local authority area. I know, obviously speaking to a lot of experts here, a lot of people will have already done this, but with the changes in schemes and this significant shift, we'd recommend that you do complete a kind of stakeholder mapping exercise, and just think about how a holistic service can be provided to householders. Ultimately, what they're looking for is a simple kind of simplicity and clarity, and as simple as possible customer journey to follow through. So how do we do this? Obviously, we talked about applying the lessons. Do consider the competing schemes, and what's your decision-making process there? Ultimately, I think in this environment, it has to be getting the best outcome for the consumer, and that could be referring to a scheme other than Warm Homes Local Grant. But the very act of us being able to do that and reporting on the outcome means that we can recognise the impact that the service is having. But yeah, clear communication for residents ultimately is what we're striving for. can be tricky as we kind of unpick all of the different schemes and the different actors in each local area. But that's really the lessons that we are looking to learn, certainly, and then we'd recommend that other people take the opportunity to map things out. John, I think I'm passing back to you now, and I'd talk about how we engage with residents more generally.
Yeah, thanks, Simon. Yeah, obviously engaging residents is key, and although we're giving stuff away for free, that isn't as always as easy as it sounds. You know, it is a difficult process. It's quite a time-consuming process and quite complex. And, you know, a lot of applicants won't understand the steps that we have to go through or why we have to carry out certain steps. So I guess this is just making sure that we are engaging with residents appropriately, but also managing, you know, people will need to be managed differently depending on their circumstances. So it's not a one size fits all. You know, it's very much every customer will have different requirements, have different understandings of the process, etc. So it's making sure that you can adapt to make sure you meet all of those needs, and you know, and explain to the customer that it can take quite a long time. It is quite a lengthy process. It's not necessarily a quick process. We need to confirm eligibility, we need to gather personal details, bank statements, etc. There'll be multiple visits to the property for surveys and installations and follow-up visits, etc. And it's key that the applicant is engaged at all of these stages and informed of the process. Otherwise, we find that people will drop out, people will lose interest if they don't realise, oh, actually, it could take 2 or 3 weeks to go through a certain process, etc. If you don't keep them engaged, people will drop out, and you know it can be expensive to generate demand. So it's really important to manage the customer all the way through the process and signpost them at every step of the process. I guess, yeah, moving on, you know, demand generation. This is key. Marketing is really essential for these schemes. Warm Homes Local Grant obviously should be easier than, I guess, some of the challenges we've seen under HUG. There are a lot more people on gas than off gas. But it's essential that marketing plan and strategy is detailed early on and also costed out. Obviously, there are constraints on budgets that are available. So it's important that you have a clear understanding of the costs that will be incurred, but also understanding that there might be multi-channels that need to be looked at. You need to look at online, telephone, direct messaging, indirect messaging, etc. And understanding the conversion rates that you get from some of those. Now, some activity can be quite cheap. Online activity, for instance, can be cheap, but the conversion rate is potentially lower. So it's balancing up all of that activity to understand the potential conversion rate you might see. And also understanding how residents engage with the messaging that you're putting out. We find that you actually need to put a message out there several times through several channels before they look at it and understand that maybe it's a legitimate scheme. You know, there's lots of people that think, oh, it's a scam, nothing's free in life, I'm not eligible, I don't meet that criteria, etc. So not only are you sort of marketing to them, but you need to educate them as to who is eligible for the scheme and make sure that messaging is clear. And then also, as I said, detailing the process and the next step, etc., and using simple, you know, language, not technical terms. You know, they won't understand what a retrofit assessment is, for instance, or an MCS certificate, or why we have to do all of these steps in the process. So just being really clear and providing guidance up front, I think, can prevent a lot of dropout as you go through the process. I guess the next thing is, you know, to attract these customers or these residents, you then need to look at the data. Sorry, Simon, you were right.
Yeah.
So data is key. Look, I think we're all aware that there's lots of data out there, but hey, it's not always that accurate. I think lots of us will use similar data sets and will have concerns over the data out there. So yeah, you know, whilst using that data, I think you need to be mindful that there may be errors in that data and maybe seek other options. You know, speak to local charities, for instance, or local organisations that might be able to provide you with alternative data sources, or give you a steer on sort of hotspots. You know, if they're aware of a deprived area, for instance, that might help channel where you carry out some of your marketing activity. Yeah, you know, data is key. Again, you know, on gas and off gas data was quite a challenge. I think now it's been opened up. That should be less of an issue. But it's really important that you are targeting the right people. It's expensive if you're targeting lots of the people that aren't eligible for the scheme in the first place. So making sure you've got data is really clear. Once you've then got that data, you then need to look at the different channels that you might use to attract the residents to apply in the first place. And as I said earlier, it's ensuring that you've got several channels that will meet different demographics, and also give some build confidence, if you like, in the scheme that it's legitimate. So making sure you're referencing the local authority's name or DESNES, for instance, and driving them to a place, either whether that's online, etc., that shows that the scheme is legitimate. Several times a day we will hear, oh, it must be a scam, nothing's free. So building that legitimate element for the scheme is really important. On the screen are just some examples of some of the activities that we've carried out, whether that's online activity, print activity, physical activity. So that's some bus stop advertising and on buses that we've done, and also radio advertising, just making sure that you're getting the messaging out there in all of the different channels to meet all of the different demographics that we're trying to attract. So we find that is really key. The other thing is to work with local charities and local organisations, food banks, etc., as they will be, regularly seeing people that are eligible for these schemes. The next step, obviously, once you have attracted these people, is to confirm their eligibility. And again, this can be quite a complex process, and it's worth just considering the eligibility routes that you take that resident through, and considering which is maybe the easiest eligibility route, and then working down the list. So we've listed there the IMD route. That's obviously quite an easy one to verify. Benefits, that can also be slightly easier as long as the resident is able to provide the relevant evidence. Income can be a difficult route to verify. So I think it's one that you need to consider how you are going to gather the eligibility data, whether that's bank statements and pay slips, that's secure, that the applicant feels that they can trust you with their data. It's very personal data that we have to ask for at this stage. So I think it's really important that the tools are built that allows that residents to supply the data and gives them the confidence that it's a legitimate process and their data is secure. And this slide just shows some of the tools that maybe you need to consider to ensure that you are managing that eligibility process correctly and ensuring that the people are engaging with you and not dropping out at this early stage. We have seen, quite a high dropout at this stage. So it's a real key one to work on to make sure that resident is engaged and providing you with the relevant evidence so that they can move to the next step. There's lots of people out there that are very, eligible for the scheme, but struggle to provide the evidence. So it's looking at all the different routes and tools that you can use to support them. Again, this is just moving on. Once you've been through the eligibility process, the next part of the journey, which again can be quite a time-consuming and complex part of that journey. So it's ensuring that you're managing this for the customer or the applicant and explaining the next steps that will be involved, and explaining, there will be multiple visits, that we will need to send different people in at different times to collect certain data on the property or to inspect the work, etc. Make sure that communication is consistent and regular, even if it's just to say, we've not forgotten about you. Yes, this process takes a while. You're still in the process. We'll be in touch. I think, again, people can drop out if, they'll lose interest or might think that they've been forgotten and then just move away. And then it could be really hard to re-engage them back into the process. So, clear communication, regular communication, and again, using terms that they're familiar with, not confusing them again with technical terms. We hopefully all understand what an air source heat pump looks like and the size of it, etc. A lot of people don't understand that. So maybe referencing, it's the similar size of to a washing machine or something like that can be really important in building that, understanding, so people continue to engage in the process. And then again, making sure that handover at the end of the process is really clear, making sure people understand how to operate the equipment that we've hopefully provided to them. Again, it's, things like air source heat pump controls and PV systems can be quite complex and daunting. So again, it's really important that we provide them with the right details, the right handover process, so that they are engaged and are getting the real benefit from the works that are being carried out in their property.
Right, thanks, John. So I think we're moving on to contract management essentials. So yeah, I think, yeah, if you have to talk through this, but yeah, give me a nudge if you want any insight.
Yeah. And I guess, the key thing here, we're talking about managing, your funding award, if you like, and the key things that you need to consider to ensure that it's delivered successfully. And a lot of that comes down to the data. There are an awful lot of data points that need to be considered, an awful lot of data that you need to collect so that you can report at different stages of the journey, but also report to your stakeholders, whether that's internal, external, DESNES, the delivery partners, etc. So it's really important to ensure that you're collecting the right data at the right stages to educate your next steps. You need to understand the conversion rates to understand what marketing is working well, or if you need to do more marketing activity, etc., or understand if there's a blocker in the process. So it's really key to ensure that you're gathering that data early on and reviewing it at each stage. So yeah, lots of reporting requirements. I'm sure many of you delivered Hug, etc. You'll be aware of the monthly reporting, the batch process, which again, hopefully is simplified, and that reporting will be easier. But it's time consuming, and you just need to consider early on: have I got all of the data? Who's going to manage that process? Have I got the time? It's a key one to consider. There is an awful lot of reporting, as you will all be aware. So it's really essential. And then the next couple of slides just kind of highlight some of the report data points that are out there, so you can start looking at what you need to be gathering. So the draft MOU has been published on the government website, so you can look at that. That details all of the types of data you need to capture, and you need to consider who is capturing that data for you, how you are storing that data, how you are sharing it, and also making sure that you're carrying out the necessary checks at all the stages to minimize error. And then, review if there's any potential fraud, etc. Data is key, I guess, is what we're saying. So yeah, really important again to consider it early on. You don't want to get 2 months into the project and then think, oh, we haven't been capturing that data, and therefore you can't move to the next stage in the journey. So it's really important. And as I said, the draft MOU is on the website. It's definitely worth looking at. Again, just showing some of the samples of data that are needed to be captured in the stages that you might need to do that in the journey. And also being clear who's capturing that data. Do you need the installer to maybe capture some certain data at survey stage, or is it being captured, over the phone or by a home visit, etc. So yeah, really important to make sure you've got all those data points covered so you can move to the next step in the journey. And obviously we don't know what some of that will look like at the moment. So again, thinking about it now is key. And then the next point is just how you will share that data, how you will monitor that data, how you will, look at the KPIs, making sure you've got clear KPIs so you can understand the process. You need to map out what that customer journey will look like and the expected timescales for each part of the process, if you like. Then ensuring that you've got the KPIs in place to monitor that, so you can see blockers or if you're seeing a high dropout at a certain stage, to understand what could be done to maybe improve that. And then also, the likes of dashboards, that sort of tools that can be used to sort of share the high level numbers that maybe without having to share lots of personal data. So yeah, really key to consider early on, I think, how you're going to capture the data, verify it, and also then share it with all of the necessary stakeholders.
Thanks, John, and apologies to anyone having a bit of an echo. So yeah, we'll do our best. So I guess the next, the final theme, proven delivery strategies. So I guess this was a bit of a catch-all for any of the key themes that we've not drilled down into previously, for us to just flag with yourself, where we've experiences that we're looking to build from, or indeed where we've examples of things that have worked well for us as well. So I guess how we'll approach this is we've just got a few headings that we can run through. So I'll do the first few. So risk register. I mean, this is obviously a requirement of the DAC check, but I guess we would recommend that you don't do this as an afterthought. Managing your risks is absolutely key, and you might look to kind of tailor your delivery approach to mitigate some of these. And I think in a couple of slides time, we have just got an example of risk register and some of the key things that you might want to make sure are captured on it. Risk appetite. So I think, this is something that many of you will be well aware of, and I guess specifically you're talking about financial risk here. you probably want to understand what this could look like and how you might want to share this with delivery partners or within a consortium, and so on and so forth. Project scale, and I guess this lends itself both to the risk appetite point of view, but also to some of the themes that we were talking about on demand generation. So, the scale of your project will inform your marketing budgets and what's doable, but also it'll influence the supply chain appetite and your ability to recruit the capacity that's required from the appropriately skilled and accredited installers as well. Reporting requirements, obviously John's just covered that off. It goes without saying it's key to delivering well on these schemes. And then I guess the interesting one, then we've seen success and we've seen challenges, I think, in both options, of whether it's delivering as a single local authority or as a consortium. And this might be kind of fully joining consortium that will deliver in your area and work in partnership with them, or it could be more informal arrangements to promote more widely and share best practice. So I think we'd recommend that do speak and do engage with each other as best you can, just to try and step forward. Well, move forward with as best you can. John, I think I'll hand over to you now for these final few.
Yeah, thanks, Simon. And again, just some key areas to consider. These can take longer to get in place, so it's worth thinking about it now. Your integration with the local activities, that's understanding who could support you with the activity in the area and building that relationship with them. It can bring huge benefits, for the likes of food banks, local GP surgeries, etc. But it's not quick to do that. So I think it's worth considering that really early on in the process. And also, other council support. Consider the benefits of collaborating with parish and town councils, for instance, and combined authorities, and just understanding the benefit that might have. It's building that trust in the scheme, etc., which helps with the conversion rates when you're marketing the scheme, etc., and then potentially reduces your marketing costs as well. Looking at blended funding, so understanding that there might be different funding routes for different people. Again, One Home's Local Grant is quite a broad funding spectrum, if you like. So, a real benefit from Hub 2, but just consider that there are other funding routes and understanding which is the best route to take the resident down. Consider how you can add benefits, look at the project, understand what you can do to maximize this, other add-ons you could maybe provide to the residents, or other support you could also provide to them. But also, keeping a flexible approach. You need to be flexible. I think we said earlier on, every case is different. So you could potentially need to flex your customer journey or the process or your marketing messages, etc., just to be making sure that you're hitting all of those eligible residents that are out there and attracting them to the scheme. It's really important, that flexible approach. And things can change. We can get 6 months in, as you'll be aware, a year into a scheme, and the goalposts moves, the eligibility criteria can change, etc. So it's understanding how you're going to deal with that and acting quickly to ensure that you're not missing out. And then, just moving on to the next slide. Again, just talking about risks. Risks are obviously key for us all, whether it's a local authority or a delivery partner, etc. So making sure that you're considering these things early on. I'm sure many of you will have seen the risk register, but it's a real key document to highlight all of the potential risks. And it's not a bad thing to list lots of things. I think it's really important to consider all of the elements that might occur and how you will deal with that. And some will be scored a lot lower than others, but really important, both as an internal document so you understand what could go wrong in a project, and also what you're going to do if it does. So that's really important. And then, other things we've considered is, your marketing capability, the batching process, supply chain capability, etc. All of these things are a potential risk on the scheme. So thinking about it really early on is essential. Some will be quite quick to maybe fix, but some others can take quite a lot of time, maybe take several, levels of governance that you need to go through to ensure that everyone is comfortable and that risk is being managed, etc. So again, just something really key to focus on, I think, early on, because again, it always takes a lot longer than you think these stages.
So thanks for joining and listening in. Obviously got our contact details there, and more than welcome for you guys to get in touch off the back of it as well.